here because we are strong. And we are at the lens of a target through this Operation Metro Surge that is not over. I can say that it's not over. Over the weekend, we have seen forces of ICE turn into bounty hunters in our local businesses' parking lots before workers and employees in school buses drive by our community centers where our kids are fearing to go back in person. I know that as a mother to a St. Paul Public School students where our Latino parents and other multicultural families are coming out to stand up for those residents that were waiting to be naturalized. And unfortunately, they could not wait. They can reach to that date because what we're seeing in these injustices that are coming from the federal government. I have introduced House File 4076 yesterday in our House chamber, where we are going to fight for funds to support the behavioral health in our state of Minnesota of those victims who have been terrorized by these ICE agents. The consistency with their actions, it hasn't stopped, even if they claim that the numbers of their agents are less. I appreciate those that are giving their testimony, that are here in solidarity, because it hurts. And we're not weak, but we need uplifting efforts, not just from our state, but from the next states of the Midwest, across the coast of the West to the East, the North to the South, that are dealing with these and may not have the accessibility of what we do when we're legally observing. We have had Minnesotans being killed for standing up for our immigrant communities. And we have had citizens kidnapped alongside our neighbors of Minnesota who have brought $222 million in last year's tax revenues to the state. Our businesses are suffering. Our children's well-being, whether they're citizens or not, are traumatized. Do you know what it's like when your daughter, who's 6, who's a proud Boricua born in this, like her mom, like the 69% Latinos who are from this state, born in this state, and the 31% that we're fighting for that make up 26% of Minnesota's population. It hurts when your daughter says, Mommy, are they gonna take us too? Mommy, is Jesus gonna come back? Mommy, is Sophia gonna come to my birthday party? These kids want to be in their classrooms. These parents want to continue to go to work to become citizens that give back to our state and give back to our country's economy and well-being of the American dream. I appreciate the work and I look forward to hearing and supporting those that are going to be continuous to put themselves in the front lines to give testimony, because we are being targeted. We're being targeted as legislators. We're being targeted as educators. We're being targeted as doctors and lawyers that are trying to help people with their basic essential human rights. So with that further on, I'm going to give back our microphone to our former Senate Majority Leader, Elisa Franci. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Perez Vega. Next, we have Representative Brad Tapke, who represents a suburb of the Twin Cities. People think this is just a metro issue. It's happening all over our state. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Representative Brad Tapke.
Thank you, everyone. Brad Tapke, State Representative, House District 54A in Shakopee. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. This is an issue that, as I hope we all know by now, has been affecting every single county, every single community across the state of Minnesota. And my community in Shakopee has been absolutely rocked by ICE, by Homeland Security, and now, as was mentioned before, we have bounty hunters everywhere going after folks. And what we are asking people to do and to know and understand and just to take intrinsically today is that this is not over for a variety of reasons. We have more ICE agents in our communities today than we had before Operation Metro Surge started. We have more ICE agents still here than were in Chicago the entire time that the surge was happening in Chicago. And so we need to make sure that we are keeping the eye on the ball so that we
Think about the air you breathe when you live near factories, traffic, or highways. These exposures build up over time, where multiple pollutants affect your health, community, and future. This is called cumulative impacts. But let's see how this actually looks like. Each color represents one type of pollution source. Red for vehicles, green for gas-powered tools, blue for household products, and yellow for industry. This cup represents the air you breathe every day. Now, let's see how it changes throughout the day. Morning routine: hot shower, shampoo, and perfume. Drive to work: coal engine, drive-through coffee. At work: printing, heating, and nearby industry. Lunch break: everyone drives to a restaurant. More car emissions. After work: yard work with a gas mower.
What is happening in our communities. Unidos MN is the largest Latino-led constituency organization in the state of Minnesota. Over the last decade, our members have helped build one of the largest Latino voter programs in the state, along with one of the strongest rapid response networks in Minnesota. Those efforts are not separate from democracy. They are part of how democracy survives. Democracy requires participation. It requires transparency, and it requires everyday people who are willing to witness how power is exercised in their communities. This is why Unidos MN launched Project Monarca. Through Monarca, thousands of Minnesotans have stepped forward as workers, parents, students, clergy, teachers, and small business owners to participate in constitutional observing. To date, 50,000 everyday Minnesotans have been trained to peacefully and lawfully document government activity and to ensure that people understand their rights when enforcement actions occur. This work exists for one simple reason. Communities deserve transparency when power is used in their neighborhoods. What our members documented during Operation Metro Surge raises some serious concerns. During the height of that operation, our phones did not stop ringing. Families called because loved ones had disappeared into federal detention centers. Workers detained on their way to jobs that sustain our local economy. Parents spent hours searching for relatives who could not be located in the federal system. Today, we are told the operation is over. And while enforcement activity appears to have gone down, federal agents continue to operate in our communities and families continue to be targeted. Fear does not disappear simply because an operation ends on paper. At the same time, trained constitutional observers who are simply documenting these operations were followed. They were ordered to stop filming. They were pushed away from public spaces, arrested or threatened with arrest. Observation is not interference. It is a constitutional right. And when witnesses are intimidated and cameras are treated as threats, transparency itself is under attack. That is why today's people's hearing matters. Hearings like these are part of a long civil rights tradition of building a public record of what communities have been able to document, what is happening, and to ensure that those experiences are not erased. Documentation alone is not enough. Our communities are demanding accountability. We are demanding transparency. We need a full investigation into the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, and into the brutal enforcement practices that took place during Operation Metro Surge. We need clear guardrails to ensure constitutional rights are respected, and we need Congress to exercise oversight so that enforcement never comes at the expense of due process, safety, and human dignity. Because democracy does not protect itself, it survives when everyday people participate. When neighbors document the truth, and they refuse to see what is happening, they refuse to stay silent in the face of abuses of power, democracy thrives, democracy lives. Across Minnesota right now, everyday people are documenting what is happening. They're defending their neighbors, and they're refusing to look away when rights are threatened. That is what democracy looks like. And Unidos MN will continue standing with our communities until there is transparency, until there is accountability, and there is full respect for our constitutional rights. We keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Next, we'll hear from Comunidades Organizando el Poder y Acción Latina, COPAL, Francisco Segovia.
Buenos días. Good morning. I'm Francisco Segovia, Executive Director of COPAL, Communities Organizing Latino Power in Action. Our mission is to better the quality of life of Latinos families in Minnesota. It is well known what happened in the last 3 months to us, to our communities, to our immigrant community, to everyone in the state of Minnesota. Let's remember that enforcement is not new, didn't begin with the Trump administration. But what we have seen under this administration is an enforcement that is a show of the cruelty of these officers has been captured in cameras, and the cruelty that they have enforced on our communities is something that no civil society should tolerate. I'm from El Salvador. My home country went through a civil war, a lot of abuses of human rights, disappearances. And what we are seeing here at the streets of Minnesota is the very same thing that happened back in many other countries, and we shouldn't tolerate that. Through these many months of the operation, Metro Search, we have seen a lot. We have seen kids who didn't want to go to school. We have seen families who have been asking for support. We have seen people who had doctor's appointments who didn't go to their doctor's appointments, even if there were emergencies. We at COPAL began preparing for this back in 2024. We didn't know what to expect, but we knew that it was going to be awful. That's why we reached out to many partners, and we created a very large network of immigrant diasporas. And so we created the Immigrant Defense Network. Through the work of the Immigrant Defense Network that will be explained later, we have reached to thousands of families. We have trained thousands of people to become constitutional observers. And it is essential to know that we also operate a phone line where people will call either to tell us immigration or ICE is in my neighborhood, or we don't have resources to pay rent. For the first portion of when people were calling about immigration, we had cases of US citizens who couldn't go to a hospital because they were so afraid of the presence of ICE. And we had particular cases, we had this particular case that is in my mind of a US citizen who ended up going to the hospital, is still afraid. Unfortunately, at the moment I was at the hospital, ICE agents show up. And that person was, we have someone on a line on the phone supporting this person to navigate and to wait. This person had to hide at the hospital until the ICE agents left. We have hundreds of cases. This afternoon, we will have the opportunity, the commission will have the opportunity to listen many of those cases that no one, not civil society, should tolerate. And that's why we need to tell those cases. Some arguments may be, oh, this doesn't have the legal base, but it has the moral base to be brought up to light, and has the moral base to demand from our government respect to our communities. So with that, I want to thank everyone who is here present to participate to this, because if we forget what happened today, most likely it's going to happen tomorrow. And it is key for us, Minnesotans, and the rest of the nation, to remember, and we can forgive, but we shouldn't forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. Next, we'll have Edwin Torres to talk a little bit more about the Immigrant Defense Network. Thank you.
Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to the national leaders in Commissioner, for coming to Minnesota to hear what we've been going on. My name is Edwin Torres de Santiago, and I manage the Urban Defense Network. We are truly a statewide coalition of over 100 organizations that spans labor, faith, advocacy, legal, working together to protect all of our rights, immigrant rights, but also all of our rights. We have our steering committee members include, yes, you've heard COPAD Minnesota today, but advocates for human rights who have been defending the legal rights of our detainees inside detention centers. ACLU Minnesota, which has been suing records amounts this administration for their abuses and violations of constitutional rights. Land Stewardship, that has been working with us in over 40 counties to train constitutional observers and make the connection with our rural communities. UFCW 1189, whose members have been directly impacted by the abuses of this administration that are targeting workplaces, oftentimes with no warrants. Main Street Alliance, who have been connecting with small businesses to ensure that the small businesses actually have the rights that they need in order to know what to do when ICE shows up in their businesses. Ayala Leads, who has been advocating for African immigrants for years and making sure that we're making this connection that immigrant rights impacts all of us, regardless of race. Minnesota 8, who have been fighting for a long time to ensure that voices of Asian American Pacific Islanders are not forgotten when we talk about immigration enforcement. We are truly one of the largest coalitions that represents every single color of this rainbow in the state of Minnesota. Under Operation Metro Surge, enforcement activity escalated to a level we have never seen before. According to their own data, which we do not believe, because we know there's more, Senator Zaina Mohammed brought it up, over 11,000 Minnesotans have been detained under this administration. 4,000 of those have been detained over the last 3 months. That averages 60 people a day under Operation Metro Surge. For families, this does not feel like routine enforcement. It felt like our communities were under siege. We're seeing increased street-level enforcement, workplace enforcement, and families being detained literally by doing nothing, going to a grocery store, dropping off their kids, going to a doctor's appointment, going to their court hearings because they were doing it the right way. Doesn't matter what they were doing, they were being detained. Parents were afraid to take their children to school. The damage that this will impact on their education, we're not even beginning to assess the educational trauma and the lack of learning that most of our kids went through over the last 90 days. And when communities are living in fear, civil rights are at risk for everyone. And the basic promise of this country, dignity, justice, equal protection under the law. Standing in Selma reminds us something we must say clearly today and every day, and we've been saying it from the beginning. Immigrant rights are civil rights. And the fight for civil rights does not end in Selma and does not end in Minnesota. It continues right now in our communities. Over the last year, the Immigrant Defense Network and our partners across the region has trained 31,728 constitutional observers with representation from 82 counties out of 87. We've trained over 3,000 more neighbors in North Dakota, Wisconsin, South Dakota, and Iowa, because we know the attacks are not just in our communities, but in our neighboring states. The role is simple but powerful. They document, just like what all of you are doing right now for this press hearing. They record the time, the location, officers' conduct, whether constitutional procedures were followed or broken. Because when government power is exercised, they must be transparent and be held accountable. The level of fear in our community reflects in our hotline. The Immigrant Defense Network, just during the Metro Surge, the Operation Metro Surge, reached more than 17,000 calls. That averages about 330 calls a day. That averages every call every 3.5 minutes for 90 days. These are parents calling because someone they know they love was being detained or they couldn't find them. There are workers calling because enforcement was seen near their workplaces or a daycare or a school, a middle school. There were children calling because they didn't know where their parents were at. And it was after the time that they were supposed to be home from work. There are patients calling from the hospital after going open heart surgery because they could not get a hold of their families. Through the Immigrant Defense Network and partners here that are represented nationally, we've raised north of $1.5 million. Out of that, we've given hundreds of thousands of dollars to communities so they can pay for rent, so they can live with dignity. And right now is not the time to displace people, to evict them, and where they're looking for a home and for food. And charity should never be the replacement of justice. So that's why today we're standing in solidarity with our national partners and organizations on the ground and our elected officials to bear witness what we saw, what we went through at today's People's Hearing. So thank you so much for being here today, and thank you so much for our national leaders that are standing in solidarity with our state of Minnesota. Thank you.
We have 3 more speakers, so bear with us. Next, we'll talk about the legal implications from a perspective of a local attorney, Simon Trotman. And then we'll hear from Melissa Silva from El Burrito Mercado as a proprietor of a local business. And finally, Mary Hernandez from Executive Director of Mi Casa Minnesota, who is a nonprofit that has been serving a lot of our community with rapid response.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Simon Troutman Cordova, and I'm one of the founders of Troutman Martin Law. And as a law firm, we represent everybody, but primarily we represent Black, Latino, and first-generation immigrant business owners and entrepreneurs. And in the last year and the last months, it's been a horrific transition from our mission as an organization, which is to build prosperity and power in community, to the radical transformation of those phone calls, not business owners that want to sign a new commercial lease for their dream that they've invested in our state and in our community, but it's from fathers calling and saying, it's from mothers who said, I need to sign documents. I have a work permit. I have status, but I'm going to go into a hearing and I want to make sure I can transfer parental rights to my child because I don't know if the rule of law will protect me. The stories of my clients haunt me. I want to thank Chair Garza and all the national leaders for coming here to bear witness to what's happening right now, not just to immigrant communities, but to our state and to our country and to the Constitution that we hold so dearly. I want to say a word of how we got here. We got here because thousands of masked gunmen descended on our city and they created a toxic soup of chaos and secrecy and public proclamations that these masked gunmen were absolutely immune from any accountability. And the context, the bowl in which this soup sat, was the rhetoric from the White House that said, Minnesotans, Somali Minnesotans are garbage and should be taken out. That did not happen. But I just want to be very clear. That is an expression of an intent of ethnic cleansing. And that's the bowl that this soup was poured into. And that didn't violate Somali Americans' rights, who, by the way, are more than 90% citizens in Minnesota. We're talking about citizens. More than half were born in this state. We're not protecting their rights. We're not protecting Latino rights. We're protecting all of our rights. I never thought that our lawyers would have to go into court and argue for the freedom of somebody the government doesn't even deign to suggest has committed a crime. They don't suggest
that they're a flight risk. But our lawyer had to stand in front of a judge and demand the freedom of somebody who came here legally, who committed no crime, and who the government couldn't represent was a flight risk. We had to beg for the freedom of a just person, and the government is not even making an argument that it's not so. One of our clients served his captors donuts and coffee. He was a green card holder. He was seized. He was taken to your state, Chair. These stories are just emerging. We've heard stories from and testimony from individuals that have heard that agents received bonuses for arrests, received bonuses for deportations. They would high five each other when they got a deportation. There are so many of us Minnesotans have been taken to the desert on the border of Texas. They have no beds. They are exposed to the elements in tents. One gentleman shared that he was exposed to a sandstorm in the desert. And because everybody could not leave the tent, they had to relieve themselves inside their tent. And the debris was so significant that when he woke up, there was so much sediment he thought he had died. And for people that say, well, maybe it's only a couple days, or it's only a couple of weeks, or it's only a month of your life. One refugee shared this with me. She said, the difference of being a refugee or being incarcerated, not knowing how long you're going to be there, is the difference between diving into a pool and having somebody violently seize you and hold your head underwater. And every second you are underwater, not knowing how long you will be, not knowing if you will. The violation of our Constitution. And this is not for immigrants. This is not for green card holders. This is our Constitution. These are our rights. And we already see, and has been manifested in our city and in our state. And we have seen the response of our community that Minnesotans understand. We're not just protecting Latino rights, and we're not just protecting Somali rights. We're protecting our own rights. For every constitutional observer that said, I'm going to peacefully observe and bear witness, yes, we're protecting our neighbors, but we are also our neighbors. And so I'm so grateful for every national leader that's come here to bear witness, to see what has happened, and to make a record, not just to protect the Latino community, and we need protection, but to protect all of us. In my family, a Latino family, we now have to have the conversation of who is white enough not to need a passport. The consensus is, I am, my wife is not. That is not because of the content of my character. And that is what is happening, not just to immigrants, not just to refugees, to every Minnesotan. And so I thank you, Chair Garza, I thank you, national leaders, thank you for bearing witness, and I thank everybody in this state who stood up for our Constitution. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Buenos días. I am Melissa Silva. I am a first generation born here in St. Paul, Minnesota. I am daughter of immigrant parents that started my family's business, El Burrito Mercado, in 1979 in St. Paul. The People's Hearing on Immigration Enforcement is important because it creates space to document real experiences, highlight concerns about civil rights and constitutional protections, and ensure that community voices, the people actually living with these policies, are heard. The impact of immigration enforcement on our business has been extremely disruptive. Our workforce has dropped from 95 employees to about 70. We've had to modify our business hours, and planning for the future has become nearly impossible. But the impact has not only been on our operations, it has caused deep and emotional mental trauma across our community. Our staff, our customers, and their families continue living with fear and uncertainty every day. One moment that will stay with me forever happened just a few days after Christmas. Our longtime customer, Jose, came in to pick up his lunch, just like he had done for decades. He greeted me and my staff warmly the way he always did. Just moments after he left, I received a call that someone was being arrested outside. My manager and I ran out and watched in shock and feeling helpless as Jose was quickly taken away by multiple agents. It was the kind of response you would expect for a dangerous criminal, not for someone we knew as a quiet, hardworking community member of our community that had been here for decades. That image is something I will never forget. Since November, we have had to make extraordinary operational changes to keep our business running and to keep our staff, customers, and community safe. We reduced our 3 entrances to just 1, so volunteer door observers could monitor ICE activity and take action if needed. We modified parking lot access to a single entry point. We created a grocery delivery service. We organized more than 10 driver volunteers to take shifts driving staff who otherwise would not come to work, which would have further impacted business. Tangible ways, donating pallets of groceries to churches and collaborating with neighborhood food shelves. Our staff and family members have all taken on work far beyond what businesses should have to endure. And everyone stepped up to do all of this on top of managing personal, heartbreaking traumas caused by immigration's Operation Surge. Vibrant immigrant communities like ours are an essential part of our capital small business economy. What is happening in Minnesota is creating crisis and real harm to businesses like ours. I want to thank the leaders and the organizations who convened this hearing, Voyagers Public Affairs, the Hispanic Federation, Latino Victory, and the Miranda family. And thank you to everyone here who's willing sharing their stories. My parents believed in the promise of this country when they built our business. And we still believe in that promise today, and we're not done fighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you all for being here today. Thank you for representing. My name is Mary Hernandez. I'm a co-founder and I'm executive director for Mi Casa. We're located in Shakopee, Minnesota, which is 30 to 35 minutes south of the Twin Cities. When Operation Metro Surge hit, everybody seemed to focus on the Twin Cities. We still can't understand why Shakopee was targeted so much. Why at one point we had over 1,000 agents in such a small city compared to the cities. We've heard all our stories. Mi Casa focuses on empowering youth and providing human health services. We switched 100% to delivering food. We heard the stories of people delivering at home their children because they couldn't get to the hospital. We heard people getting arrested to get to the mail, to get to the garbage, to take the trash out. We have seen our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, our relatives getting arrested for being brown. This is not the America dream we had. This is not the America fabric we're made for. We need your help, and as ever we come working together, it feels so good to feel and see the champions that we have here, because we are in a small city and we have been brutalized. We have been ripped of our humanity, and that is not who we are as Latinos. Now, we'll have the opportunity to share the work that Mi Casa has been doing. We have distributed over millions of food through different partners. St. Cloud has reached out to us. They were a small organization because the help couldn't get to them. Mankato, LeSueur, and we were struggling to serve our own community in Shakopee, but we have an amazing, amazing champion, Representative Brad Tatke, which really rolled his sleeves and was out there with us and for us, to the point where he stopped the detention center, which also created more stress and more panic to our community because it was coming to Shakopee. And we cannot not thank you enough because of the fear that caused for us. Thank you, Brad. Thank you. Having our state representatives one-on-one with us delivering food. His mom brought food from Iowa, and seeing the support from other states and other people made us realize we're not alone. We are tired, and when we're tired, we rise up. and we're mad, and we're gonna organize, and we will come back because this Metro Surge will not disappear from history. It will never be forgotten or moved from our generations to come, because our citizen children will remember not being able to step outside by their collar. So I thank you for the opportunity to share today, later on today, the work Mi Casa has been doing. So that will have a few minutes for questions. Great, we'll be streaming the hearing live, starting at noon, and we'll share that information for all of the members here. Thank you so much.
Derechos laborales. Servicios de salud. Justicia ambiental. Participación cívica. Licencias de conducir y desarrollo del liderazgo comunitario. Estos temas son importantes para nuestra comunidad. Son lo que nos mueve a trabajar cada día para impactar la calidad de vida de las familias latinoamericanas. Queremos un Minnesota inclusivo, multicultural, donde todos tengamos oportunidades. Creemos que nuestra comunidad puede liderar un cambio radical, influenciando las políticas públicas, moldeando una narrativa propia y apoyando el desarrollo de líderes latinoamericanos. Únete para hacer realidad esta visión colectiva para nuestras familias, para nuestra comunidad. Somos Copal, comunidades organizando el poder y la acción latina.